Well, let's talk about what you have, what you got going on, because I want to talk about you have three things coming out. But one of them is without question my favorite. And you have this thing coming out called Struttin Moogs that you got pre-orders open on right now. And this is like your rendering of a real Ghostbusters ghost, like the ghost who opens up every episode of Real Ghostbusters. That
from
version
the
of
intro.
Moogly. Yeah.
It's burned into all of our brains, I'm sure. But it was just, we've always kicked around the idea of doing just a straight up Moogly inspired figure, but just trying to capture the animated strut down a street is so hard to do, because each frame is like almost an iconic. You could pause it at any moment of the intro and he's got a different pose and expression, and to try and nail that into one static piece was really, really hard. So it was something we went back and forth on a lot as far as the design goes, to try and capture like a whole series of a ghost strutting his stuff down the street around trash cans and everything, and getting it just right was it was a lot harder than you'd think.
Yeah, I would imagine. Because it's like, it's an odd pose to catch. Like, I even think about just, look, if anybody's ever positioned an action figure, trying to position an action figure in a pose that is like, looks like it's walking and have it look natural is difficult enough on its own. Like, it's one of those things that, you know, and so then to sculpt it and have it look natural, I think with a figure that doesn't actually have, I mean, he has arms, but I mean, like, he doesn't have bone structure. You know, he's a big ghost. So it's like, how do you articulate him? How do you design him? How do you decide what he's supposed to kind of, how he's supposed to work in terms of his musculature when he doesn't have any? It's like a Stay Puft problem, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's fun though. You guys came up with a really good pose for him, and the sculpt is really awesome. I'm like, think it's really a great figure.
We really were, when we were working on it, the whole time we were working on it originally, he was 5 points of articulation we really were trying to stick with. So he would have his head be able to move, both arms, and then both legs. But like you were saying, to nail a strut, a certain pose is like, we finally figured that was more important than being able to say it has a certain articulation amount or anything like that. So we just really like concentrated on nailing just the pose. So the bottom half of him is stuck in the classic strutting down the street, legs going. He's got the feet with the little pointy tips, and that was what we were aiming for. So as long as we could nail that pose, that was the big important part. But he still has his arms still move, his head can still turn side to side. He's got his flowing little ghost ponytail, I guess you could call it, of sorts. So yeah, his eyes are closed. He's just loving life.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great figure, but I think
loving
you made the right
afterlife.
choice.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, you're right. He's not loving life anymore, but he did maybe at one point. But I think you do. I think you make a good point where it's like, you've got to make a choice between, you know, design aesthetics and functionality. And in this case, like, it's a figure where if it's not doing the strut, then it doesn't kind of fulfill the, you know, the look of it. And
yeah,
you know,
I mean, a big collector of toys, and especially Ghostbuster stuff myself, trying to put something in a certain pose that you remember from the movie or from a scene is kind of the way that I display my stuff personally. And to recreate that strut with him still having moving legs, just it was not going to happen.
This is a good point. Like, I want to sort of talk about this for a few minutes, because like, we can just talk about toy making stuff because we can. It's fun too. And like,
hey, it's your show.
You know, we were going to talk about other things, but Brendan's not here, so let's talk about this for a little bit. I find that like, I am, as like a toy collector, I've become a lot more, the word I want to use is, I'll say selective, about what I will and won't jump on at this point. And that one of the things that I've lost as like a necessity for me in some ways is articulation. Like, not that I want it gone and I want figurines that don't move, but I would prefer a figure that looks good and that I feel like can represent the character well. But I don't like when, I'll give you an example. I don't like the Diamond Select figures in the way in which they have that weird division in their chest
Yeah,
so that way you can like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
you get more posability out of them, but they don't look aesthetically right to me. And I've had so much more fun, like with the last round of Hasbro figures we got. My Plasma series Afterlife figures are still in the box. Like I don't, I took it out like one or two, and then I was like, oh, okay, I like the Plasma series figures I already have on display. And the stuff that came out and got like put out way more excitedly was the Fright feature stuff. That was like way more simple in its design and had fewer points of articulation, but also just felt a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And I just wondered how you feel about this. Like, I know, you know, as somebody, like, do you look at this at this point? Are you becoming more of a form over function or function over form? Like, where do you strike that balance, I guess is the question I'm getting at.
I'm right there with you. I think a lot of the articulation can almost take away from everything, because you get the lines, you get like the little ball joints, you get it just kind of takes away from the overall sculpt and feel sometimes when they try to put too much articulation into figures. And especially if it's something that has like with the Struttin Moogs, has those iconic things that stick out in your head, to try and work articulation into that will just distract and kind of take away from it. And we realize that, I mean, our stuff isn't really quote unquote toy. It's not marketed towards a kid. We understand. I mean, adult collectors are buying it and it's for display. So it doesn't necessarily need to have all those toyetic articulation joints and points and stuff, because it's not really going to be played with. Well, I mean, if you're going to, that's awesome. And I do it, but it's going to be on display for 99% of the time. It's owned by somebody. So we really focus on, how is this going to look on somebody's shelf? How is this going to look put into somebody's collection? Is it going to blend in with it? Is it going to stick out like a sore thumb? Is it going to, something on it going to be distracting if we do something? So at least I do. And I'm sure Brendan does too. When we're designing stuff, a lot of it is, what would I want as a collector? If I was going to buy this, what would I want out of it? What would I do with it? How would I display it? How would I want it packaged? As somebody who's going to go out and buy it, and who spent way too much money on goofy Ghostbusters things, what would I do with it while it's in my house and actually on display? So yeah, a lot of the stuff is coming from experience. So we try to definitely think of the customer or the collector. That's definitely forefront of our mind, especially when it comes to design and articulation and all that now. And it's not an easy thing for us hand making everything to pull off articulation. So it takes a lot of time and effort, and each different piece and part adds a lot of time to the process. So we try to keep it as simple and display worthy as possible.
I was thinking about this too, and like, not to be like, let's talk about me for a minute, but like,
let's talk about Jim.
Let's talk about things I own. But I've had this sort of kind of rethinking about the Mattel Matty Collector line recently, and in part because I got the Library Lady and ended up getting one of those prototypes, and I've got to see how she would have been put together as a figure as a result of that. And one of the things that intrigues me about the figure is that if you look at how she's sculpted, she would have never been able to have arms that like went too far. Like the design of her arm shape would have run into her dress. And so physically there would have been an impediment from the joint moving too significantly or too far. And so you look at the figure and you go, okay, this had to be a pack-in ghost because of the limited range of movement, because all the other Mattel ghosts, with the exception of maybe like the Zool figure, didn't have, you know, she had legs that just came off. That was the Dana Barrett figure was like sort of an action figure, but kind of more like you can do magic tricks with her by cutting off the bottom half of her and replacing them with another half of her. But it's like goes with magician. But I think the figure, when you look at it, you know, it's got amazing detail to it, right? The number of ruffles and things in the sculpt are crazy. And then you go back and you look at the Scoleri Brothers figures they did, right? And I started thinking about this at the later half of that line, that the ghosts we got in the later half of the line had less functionality and movability in terms of posing, but they were better representations of characters than some of the other ghosts we got earlier in the line. Like the Slimer sculpt is fine. It's okay, right? Like it's kind of like the video game sculpt, and it's fine. I'm not ripping on that.
Yeah, if you think about it towards the video game sculpt, yeah, it does look pretty good.
Yeah, but like the other ghosts in the line were like, I don't know, some fish thing with like weird jointed arms, right? And there was like the ghost that comes out of the subway that had like the big jaw on it and had several arms coming off of it. And so as you look at those ghosts, they're smaller. They're not as good representations of like beloved characters, but they have greater posability, right? They have more ways for you to make them look like they're acting and more joints to move. Whereas like the later ghosts that Mattel did in the line, the Scoleri brothers, right? Like they don't really have much. They can move their arms and they can move their heads, but that's about it. And so you look at the library lady and she's got kind of the same like range of motion, right? And I looked at that and I was like, I love that line so much, but that's part of the reason why I think is because by the end of it, they were going, okay, we have a limited budget. So where are we going to put the money into? Are we going to put the money into articulation? Or are we going to put the money into doing pack-in ghosts that represent the characters well and that are going to display well on a shelf, you know? So, yeah. I still shout out to the Maddie Collector line. I still love it. It's still my favorite mass-produced Ghostbusters line ever.
I'm right there with you. It's what started all of my collecting, basically. It was the Maddie Collector line. The fact that it even exists is like a miracle in and of itself, really, because there was no properties really in like as far as like a movie coming out or anything like that, and it had never been done, and it was like the first real crowdfunded basically type thing. And yeah, I have everything. I'm missing one piece in that line, and it's the Rookie. And
you're missing Rookie? Really?
I'm missing the Rookie.
That's surprising.
Yeah. I even have to get the full Scoleri brothers was after the line was ended. Didn't Tony Scoleri come with Courtroom Egon, and that was
no. Tony Scoleri came with the Scoleri brothers came with Ray and Peter. And the Egon figure was the 2015 SDCC exclusive, and what it comes with is an insane number of hand props.
Like accessories, all
the accessories they made for the 12-inch figures, they ended up making almost all of them in 6-inch scale, and they packed them all in with the Egon figure. What's weird about that, the funniest part about that, is that Egon figure, despite being an SDCC exclusive, you could still find it like a few years ago, and you could probably still find it now.
They made a lot of those, I think.
They made so many of them, you could find them on Amazon by like 2020 for like $15. You just buy one. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can just get these and I can get the extra accessories if I want to buy multiples or something. But like, yeah, it's like how you get the magnifying glass, the boom box, all in that scale came with Courtroom Egon. So yeah,
you're right. I was wrong. You're 100% right.
It's okay. You can say my favorite phrase again. You were right.
You were right.
No, I admit it. It's terrible. I like that phrase. But no, it's kind of interesting though that like that's how they did those ghosts was like pack in, but in contrast, like look at Hasbro, like we didn't get any ghosts for Plasma series, just none.
No,
just no. Sorry, like we're not doing pack in ghosts. We're doing we're doing accessories, and that's it. Sorry.
Got terror dogs though.
Yeah. Well, you got Terror Dog.
Yeah, that's Terror Dog with heads, plural.
Yeah, and heads was kind of an afterthought. Heads was like, we'll pack it in with something else.
Two-pack. You had to buy a two-pack.
We'll pack it in with something else.
It was a good two-pack, though.
Yeah,
I don't know about the name, but...
The name was interesting, but... Yeah. Let's be nice to Hasbro this week. Let's not be. It's Toy Fair's coming, and then I want to talk with you about this a bit because I want to see what Hasbro is going to be doing at Toy Fair this year because there was a lot released at Toy Fair. I was thinking about this recently that Toy Fair 2020 happened in February. It was like probably 4 weeks before the pandemic started.
Yeah, it was close. Yeah,
it was really close, right? Like I've said this, that I went to another event that weekend where people were talking about, have you heard about this flu from China? And being all like creeped out about it because we were in Chinatown in LA. And I was like, you're being weird, ethnocentric and strange. Can you calm down? It's not Jurassic Park and it's not Outbreak. And then people were like, oh my God. So then the world changed. But